Hello everyone and welcome back to Tales from the TBR. My name is Dorothy and today we have the book review, book talk, whatever you want to call it, of Zodiac Academy, The Awakening, which was the Kiss and Tell book club pick for February. Now, I have my copy here. Here she is. Here's a little tab check. She is tabbed to the gods and I have opinions on this. Just to start, before we go into spoiler territory, I will give you guys an overview real quick. I gave this book 1.5 stars. Overall, I thought that it was a choice. It was a choice. It was something. It was not my favorite, as you can tell by the star rating. There were moments of this book that I did enjoy and I was like, oh, I kind of want to know more. And then there were moments in this book where I was like, what are the characters doing? I was truly just confused by, just in general, the characters' actions. So I can't recommend this personally. I personally don't see how people are reading it, just because for me as a reader, I need, if I'm going to read something where like the writing isn't the best, I at least need the characters' decisions to make sense to me. And in this, that was not the case at all. The writing was fine, but then also we have this really intense bullying happening of Darcy and Tori, and at the same time, these boys that are bullying them are also meant to be some of the love interests, and that for me is just kind of, how do I put this? It just doesn't make sense. Personally, me, if anyone did the things that these four boys did to Darcy and Tori, I would never, ever allow myself any kind of feelings for them other than disgust and hatred, because the things that these boys do are just honestly terrible. There's also this very uncomfortable for me teacher stuff happening with Professor Orion in this. And it just, honestly, I couldn't get past it. So that's your overall feelings before we talk about spoilers, because I have a lot to say about this book. So yeah, if this is your spoiler warning, if you don't want to be spoiled for Zodiac Academy, please do not watch the rest of this video until you have read it. If you don't care about spoilers, keep watching. We're about to rip this to shreds, essentially. Okay, that was your warning. You have 2 seconds. 1, 2. Okay, you guys. Why? Genuinely, that's my big question. Why? I spent a majority of this book thinking that the conflict at the end of this book was going to be involving the nymph murders that we're literally talking about in this book, and then it's just not. It's not. The conflict at the end of this book is the fact that Darcy and Tori have literally been manipulated into being humiliated and specifically Tori almost dying. Like, for what? For what? They have said multiple times to all 4 of the heirs' faces that they don't want their throne. They do not care. They don't want it at all. All they want is to understand the power that is now literally living inside of them and to be able to harness it enough that they can survive. That's all they want. They don't care about the throne. They think that the heirs can have it. They literally don't care. And yet still, despite telling them that, Seth tricks Darcy into thinking that he has feelings for her, is making out with her, and then cuts off her hair. Cuts off her hair. For why? For why? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I completely don't understand. And then Tori is having like this moment where she realizes that Darcy is gone and she's like, I need to find my sister. Darius literally kidnaps her and forces her to follow him with coercion, which he knows that she's working on, like, getting a mental shield up about that. Forces her to follow him into a pool, which he knows that is her biggest fear. And then they force her to climb up to the tallest diving board and jump into the water that she, A, does not know how to swim in, so she could potentially drown, B, is terrified of, so they're just doing it for fun. And then, after she jumps in, they let her get like one breath of air, and then they use their powers to create a shield of ice over the water so she can't breathe. They literally almost kill her. For what? For what? Because you want power? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. Didn't like it. Did not like it. Did not like the conflict at the end of this book. I really wanted to find out nymph murder stuff instead. And then the ending, and I was like, this is ridiculous. So I have to put this down because it's hurting my hand to hold. Okay, now let's talk about the rest of this book. I, in the beginning, was kind of like, okay, interesting. Because we come into this story with the twins where Darcy is stealing at least $2,000 from their old foster home, which they are now 18, so they no longer have to live in foster care. But when their foster parent kicked them out, they did not get any time to gather their things, essentially, or to make sure that they had grabbed that money to pay rent in their own place. So we start with her going back, stealing that money, and then essentially getting caught by the police. But they don't fully catch her because she gets away. And then we come upon Tori, who's like, don't worry about it. I'm going to make us the money. Tori illegally, she just steals things. That's how she makes money. She steals things and brings them to a shop so he can sell them again. And that's her deal. And then we meet Professor Orion. He follows Tori back. Essentially, he uses coercion, which is where the Fae can put like will or something behind their voice and use magic to force people to do what they want. And because Tori and Darcy have no idea what's going on, they have literally no mental shields up. Don't even know how to construct one because they have lived in Chicago their literal whole lives. So he follows her back, and then he says, listen, you guys are coming with me. You are actually the heirs to this long ago family who was royalty in the Fae world. You're coming with me because you're going to attend Zodiac Academy, and you're going to, learn how to use your powers. And it's like, what? Like, this is chapter 3 and we're already going. And I was like, okay, interesting. And then we get to this awakening moment, which this is where their powers are fully awakened. This is when they find out what elements they can harness. And the twins end up being able to harness all 4, which means that they have an intense well of power within them. Which I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Kind of giving Avatar vibes, but sure. Let's go with this. And then we get to the moment where Tori and Darcy meet the other heirs for the first time. Because they are essentially heirs of the council families. So we meet Darius, Caleb, Max, and Seth. They are all weirdly sitting on a couch, and apparently they're sophomores, but I was like, the way they're behaving kind of feels like they would be, well, at least the way that they're behaving feels like they're above everyone, which kind of made me think that they were like, you know, juniors or seniors, but no, they're sophomores. And then the principal introduces Tori and Darcy and says that they are the long lost Vega twins. And then, because Tori and Darcy don't really know anything about this world, they've literally been in the mortal world their entire life. Apparently they offend the heirs by turning away from them to just go sit down. And then Caleb, who is apparently a vampire, bites Tori, and no one does anything about it because apparently this is normal. And I was just like, okay, interesting that you wouldn't stop this, despite the fact that these two have literally been out of your world for 18 years and don't know anything. Maybe you would, I don't know, stop it so that way you can explain, hey, you're not actually going to turn into a vampire. This is just part of our world. But no. There's biting. There's also unprompted cheek licking on Seth's part, which was really weird, and very uncomfortable. And then Darcy and Tori end up picking their houses, and the principal says that they can't both go to the same house because that would be too much of an advantage. So they end up picking different houses. Darcy goes to the heir house, which has Seth as their house leader or whatever. He's the weird one that did the cheek licking. And then Tori, being Tori, decides to go to the firehouse, which has Darius as the leader. And oh boy. So then, you know, whatever. Apparently that involves hazing. Which, here we go. We get into, now, first the unprompted cheek licking and biting, which, you know, okay. The cheek licking, I still don't understand why that was done. The biting, okay. That's part of the world. You just, you know, vampires are like an order or whatever. In the Fae world, they'll bite you to keep their magic up until you can fight them off, essentially. Whatever. But then we get to this hazing moment. And Seth decides that he is going to haze Darcy by making her believe that he's going to push her off the edge of the tower, potentially to her death if her magic doesn't work, which she's literally just gotten. And then he's like, if you don't want to do that, I'll take your hair. I'm sorry. What? That makes no sense to me. I'm still confused. And then she's like, you know what? Fuck it. And then she throws herself off a building and uses her magic to catch herself. It was weird. And then Tori's hazing is having all of her clothes burned off and having to walk through the common room to her room. Yeah. Disgusting. And then we find out the next day or whatever that someone took pictures of Tori after her clothes had been burned off and put them on social media. Because apparently social media exists here. I don't know what to tell you. That was fucking weird to me too. Then, whatever, we're moving on. There's too much that happens in this book for me to dwell on all the weirdness, but I am going to talk about all the weirdness. Then we go to their first ever class with Professor Orion. And instead of being like, hey, you know, you two don't really know what's going on here. Let me take it easy on you for at least the first class. He decides to be an asshole to them and then ends up biting Darcy because he's also apparently a vampire. And then he realizes that, and then he tells the rest of the class that they don't have mental shields and they are welcome to use coercion on them whenever they want. Yeah. And I'm like, you're supposed to be a teacher. Terrible. But okay. And then we have the principal coming in and saying, well, they don't know anything about this world. They need extra help. So Professor Orion, you will help Darcy. And it's like, but why though? But why though? But why though? Ay. Then, whatever. We have another moment where Caleb is biting Tori and he's like, this is my source. Which apparently, if you claim a source, that means that no one else can bite Tori except for Caleb. I'm just kind of like, well, why though? Then we have this moment where Darcy is going to her first tutoring meeting with Professor Orion, and she somehow runs into the heirs, and they turn her into like caked mud, essentially, just for fun. Just for fun. Which was very weird. Very, very weird. Very uncomfortable. Very weird. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And yeah. And then here, I'm just going to skip towards some of the ending parts. Because too much happens in this that just hurts my brain to talk about. Then we have from the club scene on. Okay, we're going to go from there. So they go out on the town for a night because apparently they can go out on the town because there's cars. It's very weird. I still don't understand this world. And they end up running into the heirs at a bar, and because apparently they can drink. Okay. And I don't even know how this started, but they are like, yeah, let's have a truce. And I don't know about you, but I would be nervous about a truce happening because I would be like, yo, what the a truce all of a sudden? I don't know about that. I would be like, no. How about no? How about no truce? How about I leave? And then they end up dancing with them. Darcy is dancing with Seth. I don't like it. And Tori is dancing with Darius, and then Darius has to leave for some reason. And then she's dancing with Caleb, and it's like, why are we doing this? And then, someone almost dies, so that's what stops it. Just casually, someone almost dies. I was like, okay. And then there's also this subplot where Darcy and Tori think that Darius and Professor Orion are trying to kill them. Which, cool, whatever. And then after this point on is when the very uncomfortable teacher stuff starts. Well, not even starts, it just continues and it gets worse. Darcy is having this uncomfortable, for me personally, inner dialogue about how she finds Professor Orion hot and how she would love and she gets jealous over like him being on like a date with someone. And then when she's in Siren class, because they're trying to figure out what order her and Tori are, she ends up admitting out loud that she finds Professor Orion hot. And then she has this weird, terrible encounter with the professor of said class that, like, feeds on her lust for Professor Orion. And there's a moment where she's like, and I fantasized about being on his desk. And I'm like, this is weird. It's uncomfortable. I really hate it. I really hated it. But anyways, and then somehow we get this moment where Tori is just, because Darius is supposed to tutor Tori on how to control her magic, because she has not too much. She just doesn't have any control, essentially. And so their fire teacher was like, hey, Darius, I assign you to help Tori, and he just hasn't shown up to any of the meetings or whatever. So she goes up to his room to be like, hey, we were supposed to have a tutoring session. And then he tells her, I don't want you to come knocking on this door until you're ready to bow to me, or you're here for me to bend you over my headboard. I'm sorry. What? That was weird to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. And then Tori also has an encounter with Caleb on a desk in a classroom. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm into you. I didn't like it one bit. I was I didn't like it one bit. So but there's also, I know I've been talking for so long, you guys, too much happens in this freaking book. And then there's also this, I want to call it the plot, but I have to call it a subplot because apparently it's not the main focus of this book, even though I think it should be. But what do I know? I'm not the authors. I'm also not an editor. But this subplot of the fact that there have been nymph murders happening, and every single murder seems to be close to Tori and Darcy. And personally, I was kind of like, okay, interesting. And when you have this also kind of mention of Professor Orion and Darius having secret meetings because Tori overhears one, and they're talking about killing someone or something or whatever. And I was kind of like, okay, is it possible? Because at this point, at the most recent nymph attack, which happens to someone that Tori and Darcy know, we still hadn't found out what Darius's order was. So I was kind of like, okay, could he be the murderer? I was like, maybe. But then we find out his order and it's definitely not him. But this subplot of these nymph killings and how the nymphs are killing Fae to take their power, I was just like, that's interesting. I find that interesting. I would like to know more, especially because we also have these mentions of how terrible Tori and Darcy's dad was prior to his death. And there's also this mention that potentially the heir's parents are part of the reasoning why Tori and Darcy's parents are dead. Their birth parents, not their first foster parents or anything like that. Because there's like this mention of how, you know, he was a savage king. He took out his nerves of everything on the people of the court or whatever, and blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, okay, I'm interested to learn more about this. If this is going to be like the reveal at the end of this book or anything like that, or maybe like someone actually gets killed that's close to Darcy and Tori, I could potentially continue this series, at least just to find out more about this subplot. But then it's like mentioned, and then like nothing happens with it, and then like someone close to them gets attacked, but then like she ends up being fine. And then it's like gone. And then there's like a school dance. And I was like, I just had whiplash the whole time. Because there, like I said, there are these nuggets of interesting things happening that I would like to know about. But then we have these terrible bullying or weird character choices of allowing them to have a truce and making out with them or something like that. That just takes me out of it. And it's like, what story are we trying to tell? That's truly my biggest issue, is because there's so much in here. And it feels like the authors are trying to do too much. Specifically with the orders, they threw every kind of mythical creature in here. And it's like, okay, I get it. You don't want to hinder like what maybe you can go into, but like, yeah, that's too much. Now you have too much. There's too many rules for those characters, or well, those subclass orders or whatever. And it was too much, and then it just goes away from this actually interesting plot for these like childish antics that don't make any sense. And it was just really frustrating overall. So I couldn't give it anything higher than a 2-star. I ended up with 1.5 because there are moments that I was interested in this book, but then just the moments where I had to question why I was reading it or why something was happening outweighed that. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but the orange and the blue tabs are for my why am I reading this and what the fuck is happening. It's mainly those. Like, truly, it's mainly those. And yeah, I wanted to like this. I really, really, really did. I really wanted to like this, and I barely had any expectations. The expectation I had was the fact that Olivia Reads Latte has read this and was like, it's not the best, but sometimes it's fun. And I was like, okay, sure. I'm gonna have fun reading this. And then I didn't have fun. I didn't have much fun at all. Actually, I had zero fun. There was no fun had. I even had a tab set up for, well, this is fun, and it's used twice in the whole time. Just sad. But yeah, after reading this, I will not be continuing the Zodiac Academy series. I can't do that to myself. I love myself too much to do this to myself again. So yes, sadly this will also be a series DNF. I will not be continuing it. I did download The Awakening as Told by the Boys on my Kindle because I do just want to read like the first chapter to see if it tells me what the hell these men were thinking. But sadly, this is a 1.5. I will not be continuing the series. Feel free to spoil it for me in the comments down below because I won't be continuing. I might just look it up. Might see if they're, and like also these characters, by the way, the 4 boys in here, irredeemable to me. Their actions are so terrible. I could never see them in a good light, honestly. So yeah, I did get one quote out of this though. A singular quote. There was only one. And that was, tears never did anyone any favors, but sometimes they just needed to fall. I liked that. That was a nice moment. And then everything else was not fun. So, that is your review and book talk of Zodiac Academy. I'm sorry that I didn't like it. It was the Kiss and Tell book club pick. This video is going up prior to the live show. So I will leave a link to the live show down below so you guys can come hang out and watch it with us. Not watch it. Come hang out and talk about the book with us if you've read it. The March pick is Teach Me by Olivia Dade. There will also be a book talk for that coming soon. So if you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read Zodiac Academy and how you felt about it. If you decided to continue, can you tell me why? Because I don't know. I don't understand. And if you guys like this content, make sure to subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Mwah.